All right, welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, and you know what that means. Time for some Tuesday Tao, living the wisdom of the Tao, and change your thoughts, change your life from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. And we are all the way to the 73rd verse of the Tao Te Ching. And we have been doing just that, ladies and gentlemen. Throughout this series, we have been attempting to do the most important thing anyone can do, which is change your thoughts. And if you've never heard that before, that there is a possibility that you can change your thoughts on purpose, then I suggest you start considering and contemplating that and doing some research. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to increase the quality of your life, then we must begin to change our thoughts. Because that is where it all comes from. That is where our experience comes from, is from our mind. And if we have a certain perspective and a certain viewpoint on things, that is what we are going to experience. And until we are able to change the way we look at things, the things we are looking at will not change. So I got you some tea, ladies and gentlemen. No, I'm kidding. But be sure to get yourself a beverage and get somewhere comfy. Like Bob Ross always says, that's where I got that. Because we are going to be diving into what Wayne Dyer titles this little section, the 73rd verse of the Tao Te Ching, Living in Heaven's Net. Living in Heaven's Net, ladies and gentlemen. And that is a deep statement in its own. What could it possibly mean? Especially coming at it from Eastern terms, the Tao Te Ching, and the teachings of Lao-tzu. 500 years before Jesus, or the thought existed Jesus. So we're talking about 2,500 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, in ancient China, there was a spiritual master, a God-realized being, some say, being named Lao-tzu. And he dictated 81 verses, which are regarded by many as the ultimate commentary on the nature of our existence. But this classic text of these verses called the Tao Te Ching, or the Great Way, offers us here, ladies and gentlemen, now, today, in our modern lives, advice and guidance that is balanced and moral and spiritual and concerned always with working for the greater good, the greater quality of experience for ourselves and those around us and those who will come after us, ladies and gentlemen. And so if you would like, you would think we all would, a greater quality of experience, then let's increase our understanding of reality by diving deeper into the wisdom of the Tao. The 73rd verse of the Tao Te Ching begins by saying, bold action against others leads to death. Bold action in harmony with the Tao leads to life. Both of these things sometimes benefit and sometimes injure. It is heaven's way to conquer without striving. It does not speak, yet it is answered. It does not ask, yet it is supplied with all that it needs. It does not hurry, yet it completes everything on time. The net of heaven catches all. Its mesh is coarse, but nothing slips through. But nothing slips through, ladies and gentlemen. Powerful, once again, and inspiring and overwhelming. Maybe that's not the correct word, but each of these verses is very profound. That is the word that I was looking for. I think I was looking for that last week too. Very profound these verses, and they really give you something to, like Hermes teaches, constantly contemplate. And this philosophy is very mystical, up in the clouds, and to many may seem very impractical or maybe too difficult to practice, but I would say that is the very purpose of it, is to be a practice. Having a practice of gratitude doesn't mean that you're a grateful person. It means that you are literally practicing that, and it is difficult. I was saying this yesterday. You must, every 10 seconds, you must have something that reminds you, oh yeah, you're not focusing, clearly. You're not focusing and intending what it is that you want to create. And a lot of us go very ping pong ball through life and don't really have this focus or this intention and this dedication to being able to focus on and try to create what it is that we want for ourselves. And that's what we've been discovering how to do in this series and on this channel for quite some time, ladies and gentlemen. So if you've missed any of it, be sure to go back and check that out. I'm sure you'll get value. Now, my favorite line from that verse of the Tao Te Ching is the paradoxical one, of course, as always, that it does not hurry. Talking about the Tao here, in heaven's way, which is this is the book of the Tao, the book of the way. It does not hurry, yet it completes everything on time. Can you imagine how many times you were striving to meet a deadline rather than arriving at your task, ladies and gentlemen? And this idea of not hurrying, yet completing everything on time. It does not ask, yet is supplied with all that it needs. How many of us wish we could have that experience? It does not speak, yet it is answered. Bold action against others can be negative. Bold action in harmony with the Tao can be very positive. But both of these things, here's another paradox again, sometimes benefit and sometimes injure. How could action in harmony with the Tao lead to injury, I may ask? Well, let's dive into what Dr. Wayne Dyer has to say about this subject of living in heaven's net in the 73rd verse of the Tao Te Ching. Dr. Wayne Dyer begins, ladies and gentlemen, by saying, once again, you're asked. We are asked here to see the Tao through a paradoxical lens. After all, what is, quote unquote, the net of heaven? What is this net of heaven? Chase, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Lao-tzu? Well, Wayne says, quote, it is the invisible world wherein all of the 10,000 things originate. And we've talked about the 10,000 things before, being all of the separate things that we put labels and names on here in physical reality that we experience as part of the whole. And while it appears to have many openings, ways to escape the inevitability of the intentions of the Tao, or nature, or the way, no one and no thing can exist beyond what the Tao orchestrates, or God, or force. This whole, or this one thing, that is not hurrying, yet completing everything on time, and just as it should be, doing nothing, but leaving nothing seemingly undone. Ladies and gentlemen, that's one of my more favorite lines of the Tao. And so here in this 73rd verse, Wayne continues, you're encouraged to be a respectful, cautious being under the net of heaven. All the translations I've studied say the same thing in different words. Here's one, for instance, that's brief, but to the point. Reckless bravery, death. Cautious bravery, life. Therefore, the sage behaves in a cautious manner. in a cautious manner. So Lao-tzu, Wayne continues, is asking you to change the way that you look at bravado and courage. And rather than seeing these qualities as admirable, he asks you to be less of a dauntless hero and more vigilant and alert in order to live the great way. This is what I was talking about with this ability to change our thoughts. We must be vigilant and alert and aware of what it is that we are focusing on and what we want to create in the kind of thoughts that we want to have. Because you find what you're looking for. So rather than, as Lao Tzu is asking us, rather than being this dauntless hero with bold action, we need to be more vigilant and alert in order to live the great way, the Tao. Note, though, Wayne says, that the way of heaven is to eschew bold actions and remain cautious. See, this is always fascinating, ladies and gentlemen. I never know exactly where this is going to go, even from the title. And it's always something that I need in my own experience as well. I was just thinking yesterday about practicing listening more. I'm somebody who, as you could tell from doing these videos, has a lot to say about a lot of subjects. And when I'm in a comfortable environment where I feel free to share, I tend to speak too often. And so we'll learn a little bit later here in this chapter, here in the next 10 minutes or so, about how we can become better at being an active listener. But, ladies and gentlemen, Wayne continues, Lao Tzu offers four examples, ladies and gentlemen. He offers us 4 examples of how the net of heaven holds everything within its grasp without having to be forceful or reckless. And we are encouraged together to emulate that in all of our undertakings. And so you can take notes if you'd like, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the 4 examples of how this net of heaven holds everything within its grasp without having to be forceful or reckless, and how it can encourage us to emulate this philosophy in our lives. Number 1, it is heaven's way to conquer without striving. Remember, we've talked about, look, almost said ladies and gentlemen again. I need to keep that in mind. I say it sometimes too many times, ladies and gentlemen. But that was on purpose for comedic relief. It's good tea today, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're getting value. But let us continue. Number 1, it is heaven's way to conquer without striving. So you remember we've talked about the philosophy of arriving rather than striving. Wayne continues, see how the Tao, God, force, the universe, nature, is peaceful, silent, and always the conqueror. No human can command the sun to cool down, ocean currents to stop, winds to subside, and rain to cease, or even crops to quit growing. This is all handled naturally and perfectly without any effort by the Tao. Nature always wins because the Tao simply does it all without needing to attack or strive. Be like this and relax in heaven's net. Number 2, it does not speak, yet it is answered. Heaven's net is invisible and silent. The force that provides you with every breath and holds the universe together at the same time does so without commanding or yelling, and even mildly cajoling. So be in harmony with heaven's way by being more cautious and reserved. Listen more and speak less, trusting that your answers will come to you without any notice and most assuredly without any screaming. So that is the lesson to me. Listen more and speak less. Number 3, it does not ask, yet it is supplied with all that it needs. You have an infinite supply of all that you will ever need available to you, so you needn't demand anything or even ask for it. All is in divinely perfect order with heaven's way, and you are a component of that perfect order. Your supply will arrive if you require less and welcome all that shows up. That's a powerful sentence there. Your supply will arrive if you require less. And then welcome and appreciate all that does show up in your life. Once again, this is a practice that takes diligent effort and focus. You simply cannot slip through heaven's net, no matter how many holes you may perceive there to be. Everything is arriving on schedule. By trusting in this, you'll be guided to a rendezvous with your destiny. So the key thought there is that your supply will arrive if you require less and welcome all that shows up and know that everything is arriving on schedule. And by trusting in this, you will be guided to your destiny, and you will marvel at how it all comes together without our asking or demanding of the universe, of the force. Number 4, ladies and gentlemen. It does not hurry, yet it completes everything on time. How can the Tao hurry up? Wayne Dyer asked. Imagine giving such a request to heaven. Hurry up, yeah. I'm tired of winter and insist that you bring me spring flowers in the middle of these long freezing nights. And how many of us actually do this? And then let our emotions go unmanaged and begin to be upset that it's not spring yet. This would seem to be illogical, but so many of us are guided by our emotions and not led by logic. But there is to be a balance, ladies and gentlemen, of both of those things, emotion and logic, to create the power of experience that we all have. So number 4, it does not hurry up, it completes everything on time. Imagine giving such a request to heaven. I'm tired of the winter, so bring me spring flowers. I want my potatoes today, even though I only planted the seeds yesterday. Hurry up, God, force, heaven, Tao, I insist. You can see, ladies and gentlemen, that this is a losing battle. Wayne continues, the Tao works with divine timing. Remember, everything is arriving on schedule. Even though for us it may seem very difficult to understand that. So everything is completely and completed precisely as it should be, in exactly the moment it should be. Even those things that we think are disasters or tragedies, which also may be hard for us to believe because we can't see the zoomed out version and see all of reality in its entirety and for what it is, rather than judging it from our personal ego and emotional perspectives. So, if there is this divine timing, as Wayne and Lao-tzu and I'm suggesting, and everything is completed precisely as it should be and is arriving on schedule, and by trusting this, we will be able to experience more of a miraculous quality of life and will come closer to our destiny. But with that being said, we are invited to slow our pace so that it harmonizes with heaven's way. If you think that what you want is late, In reality, it is all on time. How many of us, goes back to this idea of infinite patience produces immediate results. And that's, one of those things to most people who do not think very philosophically or have not studied the spiritual ideas of life might say, what? Immediate patience? Infinite patience produces immediate results? How is that possible? Because the thing that you are waiting for is still not showing up. And the answer is you are no longer waiting. And so the problem is solved. And the thing will show up whenever it does, if not ever. But you will never be impatient. And so the results will speak for themselves. That doesn't mean what it is you were waiting for will be there. But, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to think more often than not that when you have the immediate patience, the results of the thing actually showing up will happen much faster and much more peacefully and joyfully and in the right time than previous, than doing it the other way, having no patience and experiencing the stress. But so the more we hurry, the less we get done. And it's this thought of striving and forcing and pushing. Have you ever been working on something, ladies and gentlemen, and you're frustrated and it's just not working? And then the moment you come back with a refreshed state of mind, you immediately figure it out. And you're like, what? How is this possible? I was struggling at that for 2 hours. And then I come back and get it on the first try. That is an example, a prime example of how this force, of how this Tao, of how being in harmony with the Tao and the force and God and universe, whatever that be for you, can begin to work for us, and we can begin to get more done in less time by not even forcing and hurrying at all, ladies and gentlemen. Because the more you hurry, as Wayne says again, going back to the book here, the less you get done. Try rushing through a shower after running a 10K and notice how your body just continues to sweat after the shower. Then try slowing your mind down, relaxing, and allowing the water to course over you. And notice how your body feels clean without sweating in precisely the same amount of time that you used in your hurry-up mode of thinking. This all goes back to changing our thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, because we can do it, but it's a practice. And so even if your ego doesn't grasp it first, even if this is hard for us to understand and even believe, it is the truth, whether we like it or not. And so everything is on time under heaven's net, quote unquote. What follows here next, ladies and gentlemen, is Lao-tzu's advice for you and me and all of us today. As you peruse, P-E-R-U-S-E, as you peruse this 73rd verse of the Tao Te Ching, some 2,500 years after it was written, begin to, number one, don't see caution as a weakness or an expression of fear. So how do we do that, Wayne, Chase? Instead, view it as a way to step back and allow events to unfold naturally. Become the witness, I would say. It's very powerful. Becoming the witness and not being emotionally involved with the thoughts of your mind or even the experience that you're seeing, but rather be a reasonable, logical observer, objective observer. Bravery is a fine quality, Wayne continues, but reckless bravery. That is where you will rush in without thinking, and it is a sure way to invite disaster. Remember, we talked about disassociating from the astral or the spiritual, and then creating disaster. In this provocative verse, the 73rd verse of the Tao Te Ching, Lao-tzu is telling us to think before we act. Think before you act. It's one of those old lessons, ladies and gentlemen, that we have all been told. Think before you speak. And so, allow heaven's way to do the conquering without you having to fight or defeat anyone. Very often, your first impulse is dominated by your ego's need to win and conquer. Think about how many times you were in an argument and our first impulse is dominated by our ego's need to win or be right. I mean, so many times the solution is in a few simple words. Whether we believe it or not, you are right about that. Conflict solved. Whether or not at the moment, we're not needing to be right or win or prove somebody else wrong or be a victor and defeat your brave opponent. That would, you know what I mean? It's like, we do not need to conquer. I saw this, Wayne says, as a competitive tennis player. By not striving, I'd often emerge victorious over the younger, stronger, and sometimes more talented players. Because the reckless overhitting of the ball by their opponent would cause them to make unnecessary errors. He says, well, I stayed in the backcourt and simply just returned the ball in what appeared to be an effortless harmony. And this created more of a desire to win in my recklessly brave opponent, causing him to make even more mistakes. Wayne says, I call this young man's disease, quote unquote. I would call this the warrior's mind. Think of many Native American stories during the terrible times of the taking of the American West. And a lot of the stories are the chiefs who are trying to make deals and be reasonable and, wise about how we could go forward and not kill everybody and kill each other. And often the warriors this would even cause more of a desire to defeat and conquer their opponent, causing them to make even more mistakes. I would call this warrior's mistake or warrior's mind. Like they make a treaty and then they'd be walking. I'm not saying, a lot of these treaties were never kept and were lied about and whatnot, but a lot of the times also the warriors would go out and slaughter some people, and it would be like, well, we thought, different things were going on. The chiefs are going, dang it. But that always stood out to me about how there is this young man's mind, or this young man's disease, as Wayne would describe it, about this idea of the ego's necessity to be victorious and to defeat. You see this in sports, all the time, like we're number one. And this philosophy, not that I don't enjoy myself some sports, ladies and gentlemen. Can't believe the Avs lost last night. But that's besides the point. We're talking about spiritual philosophy here. And so, now we come to, once again, more of Lao-tzu's advice for us today from this 73rd verse of the Tao Te Ching that we can use from 2,500 years ago. And this is the advice that I need, is be an active listener. Rather than attempting to control others by speaking frequently and loudly, allow yourself to become an active listener. What I'm hearing in my mind is shut up, quiet, don't say it, because often I want to say a whole lot of stuff, like I was saying earlier. So this for me would be one of those practices that would take diligence. think of the word disciple, and you often think of these dudes following, around a guru. But I often like to relate this idea of a disciple being a spiritual student following around a guru, whether that guru be whoever we want it to be or not. But this idea of a disciple being a discipline, a lifestyle, discipline from the word, a lifestyle of discipline, being a disciple, somebody who must constantly be disciplining themselves to be in harmony with the way and living the wisdom of the Tao, as the book title would put it. So this, I would need to discipline myself and practice this. Rather than attempting to control others by speaking frequently and loudly, allow yourself to become an active listener. Many of the answers you will seek, because many people think, well, all right, when you remain quiet, you're just sitting there passively, not doing anything. But there is a way to actually be an active listener. And then when we can become an active listener, many of the answers we seek and the results that we expect from others will surface by themselves if we can just remember not to speak or even ask, and emulate this verse of the Tao Te Ching by try living in accord with nature, which listening rather than pushing, striving, or demanding will help us do. And so finally, ladies and gentlemen, why you should get this book for yourself, to put it on your shelf. Because at the end of every one of these verses, if the verses and the readings aren't good enough already, I have this book linked in the description below if you'd like to get it. At the end of each one of these, he has a little section called Do the Tao Now, as well as some nice little flower pictures and whatnot. And this is a way that we can apply the wisdom of the Tao and of the 73rd verse of the Tao Te Ching and each one of these verses into our lives today. Do the Tao now, Wayne says. I decided to go for a 1-hour non-action walk today after rereading this 73rd verse, to simply observe how everything under the net of heaven is working perfectly. So look out and attempt to do that. He says, I noticed the silent sun nourishing the land and providing light for us all. He says, I stepped back and watched bees flitting back and forth between the flowers, and stood there amazed by the invisible life force growing green bananas in a clump at the top of a tree. In all, I was just an observer of the divine, invisible, silent, effortless Tao, force, God, universe, ladies and gentlemen, at work, realizing that while it's in no hurry at all, it's still getting everything done on time. And those green bananas will ripen in due course. But today, I just love the energy that creates, nourishes, and prepares them to appear for my breakfast someday soon. Today, ladies and gentlemen, Wayne urges us to take a similar non-action walk for an hour and just note how nothing slips through the net of heaven. Boom, ladies and gentlemen, that is a boom to wisdom and a boom to living the wisdom of the Tao in the 73rd verse of the Tao Te Ching. And that was a fantastic one. I really enjoyed it. And I really needed that, ladies and gentlemen. And now I'm going to begin practice this noticing and also begin practicing being an active listener, speaking less. And sometimes, we can speak less and say more, ladies and gentlemen. And so with that being said, with all things considered, which is my new favorite saying, it helps you get a new perspective, and that's what this is all about. We've got our perspective. Don't you just want to be happy? If you've got your perspective to choose, You can look at things that are much worse off than your own experience, and maybe that'll make you a bit more grateful. But, ladies and gentlemen, all things considered, if we have our perspective and can really zoom out and look at everything, then I bet you we're not doing too bad, ladies and gentlemen. We're not doing too bad. And so remember to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, through a greater awareness and a greater understanding of our reality. And seek to discover the hidden mysteries of our reality and the hidden wisdom of the ages. And also the mysteries of our history. Tomorrow we'll be diving deeper in to the Hermetica, ladies and gentlemen, and the lost wisdom of the pharaohs in the section entitled The Creation of Humankind. And also remember, ladies and gentlemen, that there is no way to happiness, because happiness is the way. And if it is the activity and the process that we can bring to life, then everything that we've been striving for, rather than arriving, will become irrelevant because we'll already be there. And then hopefully the entire journey is wonderful, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. I love and appreciate all of you being here with me, spending time seeking after spiritual philosophy and truth and more happiness, and how we can increase the quality of our life through greater understanding of our experience. And for spending time here with me and Dr. Wayne Dyer and Lao-tzu and Timothy Freak and Peter Gandy and the Hermetica and the Lost Wisdom of the Pharaohs, and all the wonderful authors and poets from the wisdom of the ages. That used to be our Wednesday series, ladies and gentlemen. But we've been doing Tuesday Tao for over 75 episodes. Over a year. It's been over a year. So if you've missed any of this series, please be sure to go back and recap on some of these profound, quality of life changing experiences. It's been fun, ladies and gentlemen. I love and appreciate you all. Be sure to expand the description below the video and leave me a comment telling me to update my Etsy shop because you want more paintings available. Because I've been lazy and I need your encouragement, ladies and gentlemen. And also be sure to expand the description to get the book for yourself, to put it on your shelf. And what's the C60 Purple Power? You can see it in the corner over there, ladies and gentlemen. It is the ultimate antioxidant known to man, discovered by Buckminster Fuller. If you don't know about C60, carbon 60, be sure to look that up. Give yourself the gift of health. All right. I love and appreciate all of you. And we will see you tomorrow on Wednesday Wisdom. No, 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 no.